This video is supported by Brilliant. Hey, Marcus House with you here. If you've been watching along for quite some time, you will know that the team and I have been releasing some deep dive videos that look into the complexity of long duration crewed spaceflight, the primary concern of course being the health of the astronauts aboard these missions. So we've talked in depth about the damage of various types of radiation and the recommendation for strong shielding. We've also covered generating at least some reasonable G-force to mitigate the health issues that arise from being weightless for long periods of time. You've only got to read Scott Kelly's book Endurance to know just how detrimental that can be, and to do all this stuff right and protect those squishy, fragile human bodies on board, it is going to take a lot of equipment. That also means a lot of mass. Changing the trajectory of all that mass has huge propellant requirements, and if you need to send many thousands of tons of that on every trip, it is going to be hugely expensive. Well, what if I told you that once we can get all this up to the required speed for the journey, that was it? A reusable station taking trip after trip, only needing tiny course corrections from time to time. With a nod to Buzz Aldrin, may I present to you the atomic-powered, shielded, spinning Starship Mars Cycler.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
Okay, so let's talk about cyclers. No, not those. These. When you place something, say a Tesla Roadster, a spacecraft, or a complete station into a special trajectory between two planets, you get this. A cycling trajectory that can pass back and forth between them, only needing the odd correction adjustment to stay on the path indefinitely. Yep, minimal propellant needed once it is on the right path. The concept isn't new, of course. The use of cyclers was considered in 1969 by Walter M. Hollister, who proposed a concept for an Earth-Venus cycler. He was the first to experiment with the possibility of placing a spacecraft on a trajectory that goes back and forth between Earth and Venus indefinitely, again with barely any propellant needed other than small course corrections. Then came Buzz Aldrin with an updated idea. The very same lunar module pilot who landed on the moon for the first time in 1969 alongside Neil Armstrong. Now, what many people may not realise is that Aldrin was not just a pilot, he was the first astronaut with a doctoral degree in astronautics, even earning the nickname Dr. Rendezvous by his peers after his thesis. Aldrin built upon this cycler concept, proposing his own in his 1985 paper. This specific concept was for a Mars cycler, and as you may have guessed, this one was named the Aldrin Cycler, or as Buzz described it, a subway in the sky between our planet and our future second home. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Well, I certainly think it is. It's a station that once in orbit can travel to Mars and back with very little propellant. It uses gravity assists flying by Earth and Mars in this very intricate way. If you look at it closely, you can see that the orbit around the Sun is adjusted precisely on the next leg of the journey. Due to the fact that it doesn't need loads of propellant to change its trajectory, it could be thousands of tons, and it wouldn't really matter outside of it initially needing to get up to speed. It could carry heavy radiation shielding, modules for artificial gravity, an ample amount of space, surplus consumables, and all of the comforts recommended for the brave crew on board. Sounds pretty amazing, doesn't it? Now, there is a fairly lengthy list of other different types of Earth-Mars cyclers, some of them taking many years and having various speed and trajectory pros and cons. This one, as an example, is the S1L1 cycler, which travels from Earth to Mars once in a little over 4.5 years. The journey to Mars takes only 5 months, but to get back to Earth, it needs to take another 2 orbits around the Sun, doing an Earth gravity assist in between, and then re-encountering the Earth for the next crew to make their journey to the Red Planet. At this point, having used almost no propellant, the cycle can start again. Now, the dual Aldrin cycler specifically, I think is the most interesting, which is why we're making this video. This provides the benefit of having not only a fast journey from Earth to Mars in what many refer to as the up cycle shown here, but also a similar fast down cycler to return from Mars as well. By using these two separate cyclers, we can have a much faster trip to Mars and back every 2.13 years. Yeah, that's a lot quicker. So for the sake of this video, I'll name the two cyclers Transfer Station Alpha for the Earth to Mars up cycler and Transfer Station Bravo for the Mars to Earth down cycler. Immediately you may see an issue that comes along with these cycling systems. They're not stopping at Earth or Mars at all. No, they instead scream by very rapidly. Think of the scenes from the movie The Martian where supplies needed to be hurled off at huge velocities to catch the Hermes station screaming by. We need to catch that station and catch it fast. Well, introducing small, light, efficient spacecraft simply there to transport astronauts on board as quickly as possible to minimize their overall exposure. As this great paper exploring the topic puts it, these are the taxis, probably largely made up of lightweight materials and carbon composites, minimal shielding, and high specific impulse engines like the RL-10, essentially a vehicle with the speed capability or delta V requirements that we need to catch the station. Remember, we only need to take the astronauts and enough food and water for their leg of the journey. There really isn't any reason why other cargo vehicles with low-powered, high-efficiency engines couldn't have supplied the station well in advance anyway. So let's just explore this challenge a little deeper. Transfer Station Alpha will swing by Earth at a whopping speed. This table here assumes that you are departing from a lunar radius orbit, and these are the delta V requirements just to catch it. This is a fascinating read if you want to explore that deeper, by the way. A link to that is in the description below. Now this is where our journey for the astronauts begin, a journey that will take us hundreds of millions of kilometres away from our home. Once docked and on board Transfer Station Alpha, the benefits are clear. It's a fast, safe journey to Mars taking only around 5 months or so. Why safer? Well, the quicker transit time for one. Many NASA plans talk of 7-month trips from Earth to Mars, so this knocks at least a few months off that. But more importantly, we can load the transfer station with much better shielding from galactic cosmic radiation, the dangers of which I've talked about before in this previous video. Now, many argued in the comments of that video that loading many tons of shielding on a simple one-shot mission would be very costly and wasteful. Well, I couldn't agree more, but putting it on a cycling station making many trips makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Sure, it does take a lot of initial velocity to get it up to speed, but by using high-efficient, low-thrust propulsion options like solar electric or nuclear engines, that is the key. Their efficiency is just crazy in comparison to chemical propulsion. What else would make it safer? Some centrifugal force to simulate some Mars gravity. Artificial gravity, as we've spoken about in that video, is highly desirable for several reasons. Firstly, it helps alleviate the detrimental health effects like muscle atrophy and bone loss on these long missions. By simulating the gravitational forces that humans will experience on Mars, it would promote physical health and reduce the risk of long-term complications. The other great benefit of this is simply for convenience. Crew comfort is important, and having at least some partial gravity enabling the crew to perform everyday tasks in a similar way to here on Earth is going to be hugely beneficial. Eating, sleeping, and exercising in a familiar environment would be wonderful for morale and overall productivity. There's a lot of ideas on what kind of spacecraft could be built to achieve all this, everything from rotating space stations like in 2001 A Space Odyssey, right up to a more simplistic design like this, as was demonstrated in the movie Stowaway. In this movie, a huge tether had a space station on one side and an equally massive propellant tank on the other as a counterweight, all spinning slowly together. That is a really neat idea, and all these things together make the journey to Mars a very comfortable one. So, with their reasonably fast trip to Mars done and dusted, it is time for the crew to board a modest re-entry vehicle, decouple from the transfer station screaming by, make their way to the Martian surface using the atmosphere to aggressively aerobrake and slow down, and finally a propulsive landing on the surface. This is the beginning of a lengthy and productive time on Mars. Plenty of time, in fact, before they need to catch the next ride back home. That is not a problem though, because it is the reason why we are here, and it is time to unlock the many mysteries that could redefine our place in the universe, exploring the Martian landscape and possibly even unearthing signs of basic extraterrestrial life. You name it. The most profound result may even be the huge revolution in technology, medical equipment, and sustainable living that is required to even attempt all this. All colossal benefits right here at home while we witness the ultimate epoch-defining adventures on another planet. So back to Transfer Station Alpha. After passing rapidly past Mars, it continues on the rest of its almost 21-month elliptical journey to complete its circuit all the way around the Sun to intercept the Earth again. This sped up version actually shows quite clearly that each gravity assist actually rotates the entire orbit. That then results in something quite similar to this neat geometry after 4 full orbits around the Sun. That's pretty cool the way that works, isn't it? So moving now on to the second Aldrin cycler. This is Transfer Station Bravo, and it's essentially the same sort of idea, but this orbit intercepts with Mars as it plummets in towards Earth. That means a similar 5-month trip all the way back home. The issue with the return on this leg of the journey is that the taxi requirements and delta V to catch Transfer Station Bravo is way more than what was needed for the Earth leg of the trip. In this scenario, it is assumed that you will be leaving on your taxi from a station on or around the moon Phobos, orbiting high above Mars. Obviously, to have already gotten to this station, the crew would have launched on a lightweight Mars ascent vehicle first. The movie The Martian goes for direct ascent here, but either way, we need a highly efficient taxi designed to simply catch Transfer Station Bravo. Just look at the delta V requirements for this, over double what was needed when we caught Transfer Station Alpha at Earth. It is still possible, of course, with chemical propulsion, but it is a much bigger challenge here. At this point, though, we may well have nuclear engines providing a much more efficient option. This announcement by NASA in January was a positive sign of the future here. With DARPA, they are collaborating to, we hope, successfully demonstrate a nuclear thermal rocket engine in space for the first time ever, all with the goal of creating options like what we are talking about here. With propellant generation facilities on the moons of Earth and Mars, creating these reusable vehicles should all be possible, and it is just incredible to imagine. With Aldrin's dual cycler system in action, there would always be a crew on Mars in a 44-month cycle. His concept suggests that 26 months into the crew's stay on Mars, they would welcome the next crew from the following cycle, spend 18 months with them, and then head back home. As with any complex idea, there are some negatives. Because both transfer stations are in a very well-timed cycle, there is only one chance every 2 and a bit years to make this trip. The departure and the arrival times are absolute, with no margin, governed by the iron fist of Newtonian mechanics. To make this part of it safer with less risk, maybe there needs to be some backup rescue taxis or some sort of failsafe. If such a cycler system does one day become a reality, perhaps there could be a string of them all riding the cycle together, providing extra safety measures. Of course, it will also not be easy making these mammoth cycling stations. Making just one alone would take tremendous resources. However optimistic you might be, it could take decades to build something of this kind. We would certainly need a fully functional lunar base, one that is technologically sophisticated enough to extract regolith, create and supply propellant, and support a gigantic industry of workers on the lunar surface. Finally, there is the huge challenge of constructing a vehicle like this in orbit. That alone requires technology far in advance of what we have right now. Once you do construct it, you then need to establish the initial trajectories. Accelerating this monstrous mass thousands of meters per second is going to be a challenge, I can tell you that right now. I imagine a combination of nuclear engines and ion propulsion would be a requirement for this. When it comes down to it, before we can even contemplate doing any of this, the absolute first key is affordable mass to orbit. And if SpaceX's dreams of a fully reusable Starship becomes reality, that is the beginning of a change that can make everything that we're talking about here a reality. I think the positives in this, though, is that this super inspiring thought was proposed all the way back in 1985. That was when reusable rockets were just science fiction. In the end, Aldrin's dream was to future-proof the Mars program. As he said at the time, this system would go a long way towards politician-proofing the Mars program, simply because it is a long-term investment that would stretch many presidential terms. Similar in a way, I guess, to what has been achieved with the International Space Station. Now, a common question I get a lot, and one that I've hinted on a few times in the past, is that it could be possible to make a similar sort of shielded station with artificial gravity included, largely out of starships alone. Just to work out what is practical and plausible, an engineer needs to intricately understand material science and the math involved with such a problem. Luckily, our incredible sponsor Brilliant has amazing material to play with these very ideas. One interesting course to help you convert revolutions per minute to relative centrifugal force, or G-force, is this partner course with Real Engineering. These interactive components were actually based around the concepts of spin launch, but whether you are calculating something like that or the material strength needed to spin a massive space station, the concept is very similar. Once you understand the basics of material science, you will have a real knowledge that can inform you if such ideas are dead on the ground or if they could perhaps turn into a billion-dollar idea. Brilliant enhances your ability to creatively solve these problems, empowering you to navigate the future with confidence. It is built with busy people in mind, with wonderful interactive bite-sized lessons that break each concept down into understandable segments. That is what is so brilliant about Brilliant. They walk you through the basics and teach you through problem solving. Before you know it, and almost like a game, you have leveled up your STEM skills. I suggest tinkering just a little time each day, and gradually you will notice a significant impact in your understanding and knowledge. To try everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for 30 days, visit brilliant.org/MarcusHouse or click the link in the description below. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Thank you, Brilliant. Okay, so could a station built largely with starships work as a Mars cycler and also provide adequate protection for its crew? Well, in theory, it totally could. If we take all of the ideas discussed in our last few deep dive videos, we get this. Firstly, we would want to construct a giant rotatable frame in lunar orbit that will provide the main body for the structure. Then just whack a few docking collars onto that central hub, then send loads of shielding mass up from the moon to encase the living areas. Once assembled, hook up a highly efficient space tug ready to delicately hurl it off onto its long-term trajectory. Then you just dock whichever variants of Starship you require for the first leg of the journey, and away you go. That's it, right? No problem. Well, look, who knows how the future will play out, but it is fun to imagine, isn't it? The diameter of this one alone would be over 215 meters, which is about twice the International Space Station. As already mentioned, artificial gravity is important, and at this scale, we'd have the luxury to spin this up and get it rotating to simulate Mars gravity. Big shielding collars over the habitable space there to block the majority of galactic cosmic radiation as well. Essentially everything here to keep the entire crew comfortable. Possibly not with crews of 100 packed into each of them like Elon Musk used to mention, but perhaps 10 or 12 in each ship would be plenty. So yes, what do you think of this concept? With the potential that Starship brings to the table, could the door open wide to make any of this practical, or will the concept be forever a dream out of reach? Of course, there are many different solutions for interplanetary travel, and this was just one interesting idea that the team and I have been researching heavily over the last year. I'd also like to say a big thanks to Dennis Chamberland for giving me a hand with some of the research material here. With a fascinating career as a NASA Space Life Sciences engineer, an aquanaut, and the mission commander for 7 NASA underwater missions, I certainly appreciate his time. If you love this sort of stuff, check out his books from the link below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that subscribe there so we get to keep making them. Videos like these deeper dives are only possible because of your incredible support. If you would like to help directly like all these amazing people, all of these options on screen are incredibly helpful. Patreon and Twitter subscriptions in particular let you communicate with me directly much easier. All of these merch options are right here too if you need any new gear. If you want to continue our journey, check out the related videos on radiation, artificial gravity options, and much, much more. Thanks as always for watching all this way through, and I will see you all in the next video.